Doctor, you talked about, you and I talked earlier that um, it seems every 500 years that the church goes through a difficult period, and you pointed out that Sheen talked about that quite a bit, and
Yeah.
so I think right now, 500 years ago was the Protestant Revolution, the Battle of Lepanto, and all that, and here we are 500 years later, and Christianity is weak and divided as they often talk about the time back in the 500s, but in 1500s, I mean. But can you help us into that? Our title of our show tonight is Why Fulton Sheen's Beatification Changes Everything. He talked about this. I remember him saying it quite a bit. It's
Mhm.
coming, it's coming. In so many words, he'd say it that way, and we
Very
need to
prophetic
prepare
of him.
ourselves.
Yeah.
But can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of my favorite quotes of his, just because it sets the stage for why Sheen and why now, is he says, we are living in the days of the apocalypse, the last days of our era. And the two great forces of the mystical body of Christ and the mystical body of Antichrist are beginning to draw up the lines for the catastrophic contest. And that was said in World War II when he saw where things were going then. So, fast forward 80 years and here we are. And I always like to help people to understand what the apocalypse means because we that's obviously everybody's attracted to that term today, apocalypse and 3 days of darkness and all this kind of stuff. But, and in one real sense, all those things are tied into that. But the apocalypse, it speaks so much of our Blessed Mother. When we think of that, that we say the book of Revelation, but it's the book of the apocalypse, the unveiling that's happening. And it's the unveiling of this battle. John Paul II talked about this. Well, this is really applicable to us Americans here, is 250 years ago. Or I'm sorry, 50 years ago, 1976, he addressed our nation and he says, we're now living in the greatest historical confrontation humanity has gone through. You
I
probably
remember
have
that.
used this quote many times,
Mm.
but he says large circles of American society don't even realize it. And this is the big, he uses similar language, the battle, he calls it the final confrontation between the church and the anti-church, the gospel and the anti-gospel.
Just want to
Um,
interject real quick. That was our 200th anniversary that
yeah,
year.
200th anniversary.
Yeah,
He's in America speaking to us at the bicentennial.
yeah.
So here we are 50 years after that. And I find it interesting that now Sheen's being beatified. And I think it's because we're now entering the final stage of this, what Sheen would call the fourth cycle of 500 years.
Mm.
And so he said the church goes through a crisis basically every 500 years. And, the fall of the Roman Empire. And we had Gregory the Great. And then he came to help the church, the Great Schism, 1054.
Yep.
And then we had another Benedictine, Gregory the Seventh. Then you go to the 16th century, and we had Pope St. Pius V, the Rosary. All these things were responses. Then Sheen said there was one at the end of this other age to prepare us was coming a pope that would be known as one of the greatest popes of all time. And he mentioned it was Karol Wojtyła, John Paul II.